Bombshell! Lew Sherr stunned as thousands of fans turn out for Alex Eala in New York. The outgoing USTA CEO has seen record-breaking crowds, historic sponsorship deals, and an $800 million stadium renovation project. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for what he witnessed at the US Open grounds on August 26, 2026. When tens of thousands of Filipino fans flooded Flushing Meadows, the man who built the USTA's commercial empire could only shake his head in disbelief. Lew Sherr has spent his entire career building empires. From his earliest days at the USTA as Chief Revenue Officer in 2010 to his appointment as CEO and Executive Director in 2022, Sherr has been the architect of the US Open's commercial dominance. Under his leadership, tournament revenue more than doubled to over $500 million annually, and attendance topped 1 million fans for the first time in 2024. He had taken big swings, as he would later say, and thankfully, they're paying off. But in June 2026, his world was about to change. Just weeks before the US Open was set to begin, Sherr announced he was leaving the USTA to join the New York Mets as their president of business operations. The timing was bittersweet. He would remain with the USTA through the end of June before transitioning to his new role in July. Brian Vahali and Andrea Hirsch would serve as interim co-CEOs during the search for his replacement. It's bittersweet, in that I really have loved being part of this organization for 15 years, Sherr told the Associated Press at the French Open. I'm leaving sleeping well at night, knowing the USTA is going to be well looked after. But before he left, Sherr had one more project. Just before his departure, he unveiled an $800 million project to update Arthur Ashe Stadium and create a player performance center on the tournament grounds. He also made significant changes to this year's US Open mixed doubles event, turning it into a two-day, 16-team competition designed to attract top singles players. The revamped tournament would be a test of his vision, and it would become the stage for something he had never anticipated. Then came Alex Eala. The 21-year-old Filipina sensation had climbed to a career-high number 18 in the WTA rankings. She had captured her first WTA title in Washington. She had reached the Wimbledon round of 16, becoming the first Filipino in the Open era to reach the second week of a Grand Slam. And now she was entering the US Open as a seeded player. A historic achievement for Filipino tennis. But even Sherr, with all his experience, was not prepared for what happened next. When thousands of Filipino fans flooded Flushing Meadows, when the grounds transformed into a sea of Philippine flags, when ticket sales broke every record in the tournament's history, Lew Sherr stood in stunned disbelief. The man who had built a $500 million commercial empire had just witnessed something that no spreadsheet could have predicted. The Eala effect had arrived, and it was about to leave the USTA CEO absolutely speechless. Lew Sherr had built his career on numbers, but the numbers coming in from Flushing Meadows were unlike anything he had ever seen. Under Sherr's leadership as USTA CEO, tournament revenue had more than doubled to over $500 million annually. Attendance had topped 1 million fans for the first time in 2024. He had overseen an $800 million project to update Arthur Ashe Stadium and create a player performance center on the tournament grounds. He had reimagined the US Open mixed doubles event, turning it into a two-day, 16-team competition designed to attract top singles players. We've taken some big swings, Sherr told the AP at the French Open. And thankfully, they're paying off. But the Eala effect was a swing he hadn't anticipated. By August 2026, the numbers were staggering. In Washington, tournament organizers revealed that a stunning 80% of ticket inquiries were about Alex Eala's matches. In Toronto, Filipino fans had purchased 5,000 tickets before the tournament even began, forcing organizers to move Eala's matches to center court. The 12,500-seat SoBi Stadium was packed to the rafters for every one of her appearances. And now, New York was experiencing the same phenomenon on a scale that dwarfed everything that had come before. Over 10,000 Filipino fans had already flooded the grounds of the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, with only 4,000 seats remaining before a historic sellout. Resale ticket prices had climbed above $300 on the secondary market. In response, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani and the USTA announced the release of 1,000 discounted main draw tickets at just $100 each. A nearly two-thirds discount designed to make the tournament accessible to local residents. The man who had transformed the U.S. Open into a $500 million commercial empire was witnessing something that no spreadsheet could have predicted. The Eala effect wasn't just a fan phenomenon. It was an economic force that was rewriting the rules of the tennis business. We want as many people as possible to experience tennis and the U.S. Open. Sherr's successor, Craig Tiley, would later say of the initiative. But the decision to offer discounted tickets revealed a deeper truth. The USTA was scrambling to keep up with demand that had exceeded all expectations. As the Philippine Star observed, the phenomenon was deeply sociological. The Alex Eala phenomenon is as much about her as it is about the Filipino diaspora. There is a specific sociology and political economy to the ardent crowds that turn up at the stands. Filipino migrants are giving up a lot to afford these tickets. They think nothing of what they had to give up for the chance to cheer the Filipina athlete. Those sacrifices were visible across the U.S. Open grounds. Fans who had traveled from across the United States, some saving for months, stood shoulder to shoulder with New York locals, their Philippine flags transforming Flushing Meadows into a sea of red, blue, yellow, and white. The USTA CEO, who had built a commercial empire, had just witnessed a phenomenon that no amount of data could have predicted. And the Eala effect was about to get even bigger. Lew Sherr has spent his entire career building a commercial empire. But when he witnessed the Eala effect firsthand at the U.S. Open, he was completely stunned. The outgoing USTA CEO, who had transformed the U.S. Open into a $500 million annual powerhouse, who had secured a 12-year, $2 billion media rights deal with ESPN, who had unveiled an $800 million renovation of Arthur Ashe Stadium. All of it suddenly seemed small compared to what he was witnessing in August 2026. Sherr had seen record-breaking crowds before. He had seen passionate fan bases before. But this was something else entirely. "We've taken some big swings," Sherr had told the Associated Press at the French Open, and thankfully, they're paying off. But the Eala effect was a swing he had never anticipated. When thousands of Filipino fans flooded the grounds of the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, when the chants of "Let's go, Alex!" echoed across Flushing Meadows, when the sea of Philippine flags transformed the venue into a celebration of national pride, Lew Sherr found himself in the middle of something that no amount of data could have predicted. The numbers were staggering. In Washington, tournament organizers revealed that 80% of ticket inquiries were about Alex Eala's matches. In Toronto, the 12,500-seat Sobeys Stadium was packed to the rafters for every one of her appearances. And in New York, over 10,000 fans had already purchased tickets, with only 4,000 seats remaining before a historic sellout. The Eala effect had become such a phenomenon that even Patrick McEnroe had warned tournament organizers, the USTA better make sure they put her on big courts. In New York, I think the crowd is going to be wild for her. As Sherr looked out at the sea of Philippine flags, he could only shake his head in disbelief. The man who had built a commercial empire that included an $800 million stadium renovation and a record $500 million in annual revenue had just witnessed the arrival of a cultural force that no spreadsheet could have predicted. And the Eala effect was only just beginning. The numbers were staggering. But the sight was even more breathtaking. As Lew Sherr stood at the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center on August 26, 2026, he witnessed something that no amount of data could have predicted. Thousands of Filipino fans, draped in Philippine flags, wearing custom Alex Eala jerseys, chanting "Let's go, Alex!" in perfect unison, had transformed Flushing Meadows into a celebration of national pride. The grounds were unrecognizable. The energy was electric. And the man who had built the U.S. Open into a $500 million commercial empire could only shake his head in disbelief. This wasn't just a tennis tournament anymore. It was a movement. The Eala effect had become so powerful that it had forced the US Open to adapt in ways never seen before. In partnership with New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, the USTA announced a limited batch of 1,000 main draw tickets priced at just $100 each, a nearly two-thirds discount from the average resale price of $288. Regular US Open tickets had climbed above $300 on resale platforms, yet the Filipino community was still buying. For fans hoping to catch Eala in action, the offer was a lifeline. "We want as many people as possible to experience tennis and the US Open," Craig Tiley, the new USTA chief executive, said of the initiative. But the decision to offer discounted tickets revealed a deeper truth. The USTA was scrambling to keep up with demand that had exceeded all expectations. The Filipino community in Queens had mobilized like never before. Woodside, just 5 kilometers from Flushing Meadows, had been dubbed Little Manila due to its dense Filipino population. Thousands of fans from the area, along with overseas Filipino workers who had traveled from as far as Hong Kong, descended upon the grounds, transforming the tournament into a home away from home. I spoke to an OFW who came all the way from Hong Kong. Keats London, a Filipino photographer based in New Jersey, told the Inquirer. She spent her hard-earned money to fly to New York and watch Alex play. She did not regret having spent the money even though Alex lost her match that day. Patrick McEnroe's warning had proven prophetic. The USTA better make sure they put her on big courts, the ESPN analyst and former US Open director had said. "In New York, I think the crowd is going to be wild for her. It's going to be a great story. Better make sure they don't put her on one of those side courts early in the tournament." McEnroe wasn't alone in his assessment. Mary Jo Fernandez, the 3-time Grand Slam singles finalist and ESPN commentator, backed up McEnroe's advice. "It's remarkable. I experienced it last year in Miami when she played. Her following, that just come to watch her not just play her match, but to watch her practice is off the charts. It's just gotten bigger and bigger everywhere she goes. Watching even on TV when she won in DC, when she played in Canada, I mean, it's almost like she's playing a Billie Jean King Cup match when she's out there. Every point is loud. Every point she wins, it feels like she's won more than a point. It's remarkable." Even Felix Auger-Aliassime, Eala's mixed doubles partner in a world no. 4 had been amazed by what he experienced firsthand. "It's kind of funny because she's younger than me, but I feel like she has the fan base and she's carrying the crowd," he had said. "It's a great opportunity to kind of feel what it's like to have that Eala effect and her fan base behind me." But the takeover extended far beyond the USTA's planning. When the husband and wife duo of Elena Svitolina and Gail Monfils defeated Eala and Auger-Aliassime in just 39 minutes, the outcome didn't dampen the fans' spirits. They had come to celebrate Eala and everything she represented. The mixed doubles match itself was a masterclass in partnership. Svitolina and Monfils, married since 2021, won 34 points to Eala and Auger-Aliassime's 23, committing just one unforced error compared to the young duo's 8. But the result didn't matter to the thousands of fans who had packed Louis Armstrong Stadium. For Lew Sherr, it was a moment of clarity. The man who had overseen an $800 million renovation of Arthur Ashe Stadium and signed a 12-year, $2 billion media rights deal with ESPN, who had built an empire on numbers and analytics, had just witnessed a phenomenon that no spreadsheet could have predicted. The Eala effect had arrived in New York, and it wasn't leaving anytime soon. Lew Sherr had built an empire, but the Eala effect had shown him something that no amount of data could have predicted. The outgoing USTA CEO, who had transformed the US Open into a $500 million commercial powerhouse, who had secured a 12-year, $2 billion media rights deal with ESPN, who had unveiled an $800 million renovation of Arthur Ashe Stadium, had witnessed something truly extraordinary. When thousands of Filipino fans flooded Flushing Meadows, when the sea of Philippine flags transformed the venue into a celebration of national pride, when the chants of "Let's go, Alex" echoed across the grounds, Lew Sherr found himself in the middle of a phenomenon that no spreadsheet could have predicted. "We've taken some big swings," Sherr had told the Associated Press at the French Open, "and thankfully, they're paying off." But the Eala effect was a swing he had never anticipated. The Filipino takeover of Flushing Meadows had been months in the making. In Washington, tournament organizers revealed that a stunning 80% of ticket inquiries were about Alex Eala's matches. In Toronto, the 12,500-seat Toast-based stadium was packed to the rafters for every one of her appearances. Patrick McEnroe had warned tournament organizers, "The USTA better make sure they put her on big courts. In New York, I think the crowd is going to be wild for her." Even Felix Auger-Aliassime, a world number 4 who had reached the US Open semifinals twice, was amazed by what he experienced firsthand. "It's kind of funny because she's younger than me, but I feel like she has the fan base and she's carrying the crowd," he had said. But Sherr's departure had created a transition. In June 2026, just weeks before the US Open, Sherr announced he was leaving the USTA to join the New York Mets as their president of business operations. The 15-year USTA veteran would remain through the end of June before starting his new role in July. "It's bittersweet in that I really have loved being part of this organization for 15 years, Sherr told the AP. "I'm leaving sleeping well at night, knowing the USTA is going to be well looked after." Brian Vahali, the USTA chairman, and Andrea Hirsch would serve as interim co-CEOs during the search for his replacement. Then came the news that signaled the USTA's future. Craig Tiley, the 64-year-old CEO of Tennis Australia, who had transformed the Australian Open into one of the most successful Grand Slams in the world, was announced as Sherr's successor. Tiley had spent 13 years at Tennis Australia, overseeing record-breaking attendance and innovative scheduling changes. "I'm hugely excited about what's happening over there," Sherr had said of his own departure. Now, Tiley would be the one leading the USTA into a new era. The Eala effect was a sign of that new era. The phenomenon had become so powerful that it was reshaping the traditional dynamics of the sport. Tiley had just witnessed what no amount of data could have predicted, a cultural force that was rewriting the rules of the tennis business. The 21-year-old Filipina had drawn thousands of fans to every city she had played in, packed venues with millions of engagement, and drawn an entirely different demographic to the sport. "It is really the pleasure of my life to experience these things," Eala had said. The empire was in transition. But the Eala effect was here to stay.